in
Yeah, and
sentences.
that reminds me too of my Ojibwe teacher was telling me some. Oh, I just forgot it. I just had it in my head. Oh yeah, there's no word for please in Ojibwe. So like, if you were if you were to translate that to English, that might come across as rude. But the like basis for that is that the culture historically was so like community focused and community based that there was no word for please, because what you did instead was just make sure that you were there for that person in the future. So there was like no concept of please, which was really
Oh,
big.
that is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so it was really just based in like that cultural reciprocity. But if you were to translate that to another culture and language, you might be like confused, right? So
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Like I would say as a Filipino example, because in the Filipino language, Tagalog, we have I don't know what the descriptive word is, but it's po, po, and it's usually something you say after every time you finish a sentence, even, or if you're asking for someone like your grandmother, or it's a sort of a sign of respect, or you use it if you're talking to someone that's older than you, or is as a sign of respect. And when Filipinos start to speak English, or start to mix English and Filipino, and then we don't get to say the po, and it's to some like very traditional Filipinos, it's like, well, that's kind of rude, but also it's like, well, they just didn't know to use it. Like even right now, I if you also say it to people that you're not really that familiar with yet, so until you get into like become casual like conversationists. But it's, yeah, it's that's just a good another example of how languages can also just be perceived differently. Oh, the culture is going to be perceived differently because of different languages and how languages have affected cultures.
yeah, that is really cool. Um, and I think it is really awesome too. It's like language is so important to culture, because you find all those like little aspects of it that sort of give you insights to like how people relate to each other and how culture does and stuff. So that is really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sorry, one last thing. I know we're probably closing here, but I was just wanted to say how I did this thing at work where I got to go to a bunch of places where Michif is spoken. And so I got to go to like there's a difference between Northern and Heritage Michif, and I found it intriguing how, and also I was inspired by the fact that they're trying to revive the language, because we were doing an app where people would learn Michif. And actually, we also did a thing so people could learn Blackfoot, because it's one of those things that it's not many people, and I can't I don't really want to say much because I don't know much about it and I'm not part of the community, but they're trying to do so much so that I guess the younger generation won't forget about the language. And because I think there's not that many that are, so it's great that you are learning one, and it's we don't we wouldn't want to forget about it, right? And it, again, it's one of those things that if we lose it's as if we're unconsciously just erased history. But I guess languages die all the time, but if we can save it, let's try.